Hey everybody, Something Gadget Guy here, checking out the camera on LG's newest mid-range phone, the LG G3 Vigor, also called the G3S internationally. It's packing a quarter-inch 8-megapixel sensor capable of 30 frame per second 1080p video, bolted onto the back of a $330 phone. So let's see what we get with that mid-pack price. Starting off with some flowers and bright outdoor light, we're seeing great detail, though I find LG's camera app still has a nasty tendency to overexpose. It regularly clips your highlights and will start to wash out your colors. This white flower, for instance, we've almost completely lost detail in the petals, and there are no controls to manually lower the exposure setting to compensate. Reds are always an issue for digital sensors, so it's no surprise that the Vigor falls prey to overexposure and oversaturation issues here too. There is laser focus on board, but no image stabilization, and even though I'm trying to keep the phone as steady as possible, every single scene has a lot of shaky movement. The laser focus is not as fast or as sure-footed as the Big Brother G3 either. Maybe my biggest frustration with the Vigor is there is no way to pre-focus before shooting video. Once you push record, it resets the focus and you have to refocus on your subject. And you can see this refocus at the beginning of every single video I've shot. The laser focus also doesn't work across long distances. In busy scenes, sometimes the Vigor would just fail to lock on, like these palm trees for example. It never landed clear focus. Macro distances are a bit disappointing. Creeping up on some close-up shots, I find I need to back away further than many other phones close to this price point, especially Nokia devices. And the camera app will sometimes indicate that I do have a focus lock when I obviously do not. Without image stabilization, the walking test shows off every bump and jostle the phone receives, and I'm really trying here, people, both hands tucked in at the elbows and doing an exaggerated marching band stride to provide as stable a platform as possible. In our traffic scene, the phone does a solid job with objects entering and leaving the frame. You might see the occasional stutter, but it's performing better than I thought it would considering the low power CPU in play. Also, I'm happy to see decent dynamic range. The sky is holding blue with bright cars driving through the scene. I can't say audio is very impressive at all, however. The noise reduction is severe, and the mics aren't great. Makes for a bad combo, and the output is a warbling, underwater-sounding mess. Into a transition test from a dark scene to a bright scene, the transitions are smoother than I thought they'd be, with a fairly nice bloom effect. I had to run this test 3 times to keep the autofocus from completely wigging out. Exposure transitions take some horsepower, and it seems the phone can't quite keep up with changing exposure and maintaining focus at the same time. The focus also gets confused during zooming. This confused me, as the phone is simply scaling up the scene to zoom, so that shouldn't affect the focus, but every attempt resulted in me having to refocus after zooming in. Not a particularly pleasant image at full zoom, and it doesn't seem the camera is resampling or cropping much from the sensor. You probably won't use it much, to be perfectly honest. The quarter-inch sensor is smaller than the third-inch sensor found on the flagship G3. As such, it has an even longer and less attractive depth of field blur. Busy backgrounds are very easily seen, with objects easily able to distract from the subject you're trying to shoot. It's only pushing the camera to its macro limits that you can get any soft blur in the background. Into a nighttime test, the camera does scale the frame rate down in low light, but thankfully caps the rate at 24 frames per second, which is still largely acceptable for smooth-ish video. Moving objects get a bit smeary, and video noise reduction is blurring detail, but again, for the price point and sensor size, it's better than I thought it would be. White balance in low-light shooting scenarios is surprisingly good. The LG is nailing the yellow of this creepy tunnel while maintaining the color detail of the white lights down the tunnel. And our creepy gate is about the right color too for the yellow lights that wash the scene, though we can see some issues with the focus hunting around. Our walkway again shows the difference between these two lights, one more yellow than the other, but all of our nighttime shots seem muted or washed out. I'd prefer a little more contrast or a little more dynamic range to help subjects pop from their backgrounds. This last flower, lit by a porch light a couple yards away, shows good detail once the focus locks in. Noise reduction is softening the scene, but it's not completely destroying fine detail. While I've been super critical, I keep coming back to the phrase, better than I thought it would be. It's heartening to see decent-looking 1080p video at a mid-ranger price. Cheaper phones often drop the resolution to 720p. However, focusing and exposure issues can make the Vigor a frustrating camera to use, and cheaper phones like the Lumia 1320 give the Vigor plenty of competition. As always, folks, thanks so much for watching my videos, subscribing to my channel, sharing my videos. You guys have been phenomenal talking up some of these videos on social media, and I cannot thank you enough. Hit that thumbs up button, and I will catch you all on the next review.